Alrighty, let's get going. You already know what we're here for. We're going to talk about the Materia Cup Cardiff. Looks like we had 123 entrants. This was the European major that took place the same time as the Kansas City one. There was a stream for this. I really didn't get to see a lot of it, but I figured it would be good for me to do what I always do and start talking about the decks. So we have top 16 all up on FFDecks, and I have off to the side, so I at least know how a lot of these decks did in Swiss. So the winning deck is Soiree. So in general, this is a relatively normal Soiree list. We are on a Kieran variant, which means that we are going to have to run a higher count of 4-drops, which makes sense. Kieran's weird because it helps a little bit with the Ice Earth matchup because you can't have him dull frozen. He is a forward that is off the normal thing that they're stopping, which is 4s. But because he does force you into so many more 4-drops, I'm always a little scared to run a Kieran variant with Arcanist in the format. We had the one Fusoya to try to answer it. I know the Sedaine is objectively good at finishing games and being lethal, but I'm starting to get to the point where I think people should go back to the 3-drop over this one if you don't want to do the 2-drop Ragavan Sedaine. But that's just I think I'm almost snapping back too hard on thinking this card would be broken and completely meta warping and unfun to be it's fine. He's okay. And I think that difference colors my opinion on the card where I honestly don't think I would run him in a list that wasn't exactly Firewind or looking to cheat him out quickly. Beyond that, I like the one Sophie. Again, we're trying to help ourselves in the Ice Earth matchup as much as possible. Sophie's actually really good. I think this card is... There's a non-zero chance in a couple of sets we're looking back and wondering why no one was playing this card. I genuinely believe that has the potential to be true. Only one Arc is a little surprising. I actually really like Arc and Soiree just because it's so easy with Warrior of Light. And Soiree's always been a deck that really loves power pumps, so having another version of Aerith, essentially, seems just really good. A version of Aerith that protects you from a lot of common removal right now. Other than that, looks like a pretty standard list. Only one Lexa is a little surprising, but I don't think... Yeah, it's impossible to get locked out of Warrior of Light, so even she goes to damage. It's not the end of the world. One Shantoto, we were gambling a little bit, weren't we? Seems like about as solid a list as I would expect. I'm not gonna lie. Second place was FF6, and we'll notice this is not a Stooge variant. This is just what I like to call stab and spam, where we're on 3, 6, 9 different Sabins. We're on 4 Umaros, so a lot more name clash in this list than you would find in a Stooge list. We're on the 2 Terra as well, which usually you will have to see because they're just looking for... You're really hurting for names in this deck a lot of the time if you're not playing the 9 Stooges. In general, I think this list is fine. I think that a lot of 6 players kind of unnecessarily restrict themselves to playing in title. I think there's a pretty good argument that even though it will make the lock miss, you should be playing Amaterasu. And I've been a huge fan of Noctis in this deck. Noctis plus Celise as a turn 1 combo is more debilitating than Hope Vanille, because the thing you're threatening isn't killing them, but you're threatening to win the game, essentially, by just out-resourcing them. And I think that's incredibly scary. It's almost like playing Avalanche in a way, but with way less investment at that point. And all you have to do is run 1 or 2 Noctis in the list, which really doesn't make you miss unlock that much more where I'd be scared of it. It's interesting seeing this deck still placing this highly. So I think at this point we can pretty safely say it's probably not a flash in the pan, but I also don't know that I think this deck is going to be winning a lot of events. I think it's going to be around the top tables though, so you should definitely, if you don't have anybody in your playgroup that plays this deck, you should have one so you can kind of practice and play test against this deck. It is very cool and it's very fun to see piloted well for sure. And here is the deck that makes me question everything I thought I knew about the game. So this is Mono Windstorm. Except, where's the Althea? So this is the only list that I've actually seen before the, like I've been doing this video. And I remember looking at this and seeing a win list with 13 backups and no Althea, and I just went, how is that possible? And I genuinely, I don't know. We're still on the Fat Chocobo, the Chocobo Sam Fat Chocobo Chocolate engine, which makes sense. We don't have an alternative target for Chocolate in case we draw it. I'm not sold either way on that. I can see arguments for both, because admittedly, like, it sucks to have all your backup slots filled, but like, if you do go Chocobo Sam, Fat Chocobo, Chocobo, Chocolate, you have 4 backups on turn 2, which seems really, really good. Stiltskin's really good, although we also aren't on the Evray at all. Which, I guess, like, without Althea, maybe you don't run Evray? I don't know. I have no idea what this list is doing. This is one of those, like, let them cook lists. Would love the chat. This is the deck that I like. I want to be a better mono win pilot than I am, and I'd be very curious to talk to this player and see what their thought process was on it, and to give the deck list a try myself. Simon Drake, we're on. This looks like just kind of tricolor wall good stuff. Not much to say. It's kind of Warrior of Light, Cecil Turbo. The one Barrett's actually a really interesting inclusion. We are on like Chocobo, so you can go like Barrett Wall, Chocobo Wall. Could be kind of cute. We have the Bosch. We are running the Soiree backups to try to help us color fix. This actually looks really similar to a friends list that they took to the Materia Cup in Kansas. Like, almost scary similar, actually, the more I'm looking at it. It's a good list. I would be a little scared of 13. We're only on the 1 Heka, 2 Shantotos. But, I mean, if you have the Cecil Wall, you kind of have a chance regardless. I think I might try to sneak a single copy of Rosa in there, just to try to up the value on the wall in the Une, but I'm also not a huge Brynhildr fan, and it's just kind of, that's a me thing. Europe rates Brynhildr a lot higher than NA does, I've noticed. They will go a lot more out of their way to put this card in decks, and you'll see it fall out of a lot more NA lists than EU. Yeah, so we got like the Sky Pirate and Soiree engines, both of which are trying to get us to 4 colors of backups. Water is our off element. I don't think there's too much more to talk about here. So this is Mono Water with a guest appearance by Kadaj. We're on 3 Poo-Poo actually in this list. We're really, so this is a Turbo Lena Leviathan build. We're on 3 Leviathan even. Wow. Really trying to make sure that doesn't go anywhere. Always liked Lightning in this list. Actually, I almost would rather see the Light Lightning as well for Switch Kamada fodder, while also being a good card and a good EX burst over the Kadaj. But Kadaj is a good card. It's hard to ever fault somebody for playing the card, even if it is kind of poorly positioned against 13 exactly. Legends of Dane. I know some mono water lists have switched over to playing him specifically because of how good he is at turboing through your deck for the Lena. Really, I have never been a huge fan of this Tidus, but I get why he's in here. 17 summons, These all seem fine. We're on 21 EX burst. Yikes. Wow, you don't want to hit into this. What does this summoner do? 4 CP gets back a summon. We're not on Sarah at all. We're on that instead. It's interesting. 3 Yuna, 1 Kyrie. Kyrie, Waka, Geomancer. So we're really looking to just Sildra, get 2 backups. I guess you can go Sildra, get Summoner Yuna, cast Sildra, get Waka Geomancer, and you probably, like, that's all the backups you need to turn Ashe online. It's a cute tech, actually, now that I think about it. It kind of does what Cryo and Echidna do, but you get to do that while developing a backup. I actually really like that, the more I'm thinking about that, the synergy with Sildra. Really nice little package there. No Tonberries in the monster lineup. We're on just the 1 Tros, the 3 Blue Worms, and the 2 Echidna. Looks good. I might have gone a little lower on summons. Stuff like this 3 CP Leviathan is a little bit. Like there's nice things like bouncing your own Ashe to hand, but I guess a lot of our stuff has entry effects. It's really just the Tidus, the Zidane, and the Porum that don't benefit from it at all. Whoa, we're on 4 CP Cucullin. I mean, it's a draw. Do I like that? I would have to playtest for that to know how much I like that. I have no idea. It's more castable than Remora, but it's a significantly worse EX burst. And we really shouldn't be looking to win combat. Like, that's not a thing the deck is going to do well. Could be, like, Zidane protection, but I feel like if you're trying to, like, help Zidane a power reduction, because Zidane should probably be trying to be unblockable, doesn't actually solve the problem there. Weird. Yeah, I don't know what to say on that one. As an aside, by the way, Solution 9 is really good. Alright, we got Ice Lightning. 3 Lilith, 3 Melusines, run a Crystal variant. The 3 Shivas, that makes sense. I think this card is actually criminally underplayed in Iceless. I think there's an argument that if you're on Ice, unless you're worried about decking out specifically, you should play this to play a 47 card deck. The condition where this card is just a blank card, the top card of your deck, is did you play a forward this turn, and does your opponent control a forward? And I think those are both easy enough conditions to fulfill, where this card should probably be at 3 in any Ice Lightning list, just to make the deck more consistent. It's the Upstart Goblin theory from Yu-Gi-Oh! Essentially. I'm actually wondering, in some ways, if that's not correct with Chocobo Chick for Wind. If you go by Upstart Goblin theory in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is that if you can have enough cards that don't do anything but replace themselves, you can run them and run a smaller, more consistent deck. So I think that's really, really potent, especially because the benefit of dulling and freezing forward actually makes this deck able to turbo into kills more often. Only 1 Vincent is a little bit of the big thing I don't like as much here. I've really come to appreciate just how busted this card is. People call him a turn skip. He really is a turn skip. Like, you play him and your opponent says, okay, I draw 2 cards and pass, which in a deck this aggressive runs the Romus, the Alcids, the Sephiroth, the Lightning, even like the Cindy and the Laswell. All these cards are threatening to kill. I actually think it's a bad list for Sarah Mobius, and I actually really like the card. Yeah, I think that like something like the Wall Trill might be better served as a copy of Vincent. We have Reeve, Kate Sith. We have no Narrow Weiss Restrictor package. Interesting. Ricard, I think, is criminally slept on. I think that card is really, really good. The 2 Ezale, so we can toolbox into Theodore for the right matchup. It's interesting. Kuja, Ninja, so we're on the Crystal Gen backups, and 2 Arcanist. Seems solid. It's not my favorite Ice Lightning list I've ever seen, but this is definitely... This will get the job done, for sure. Alex Walker, this is Soiree. We are very prone to Arcanist. We've got just Cecil, Yuffie, Zidane, and Bosch that aren't cost 4. We're really opening ourselves up to that. Looks like a pretty standard Soiree list with the exception of the 2 Minas here. Never mind, maybe it's not so standard. So basically, we're just trying to make Yuffie work in the list. We've got the Kusiths to recur her. Chocobo is actually really nice in Soiree. Like, Vesvia is literally free. So being able to like block her or replay her is not bad. Yeah, very normal Soiree. A little low on EX is the only other thing I would say. James Ramsden, I think this was the first place after Swiss. So this one is using Une to try to break Arcanist locks. That makes sense. 6 TP Leviathan. I don't hate that. Warrior of Light, Vesvia, Une. We've got 8 targets to get back with it, all of which are game-winningly powerful. That's acceptable. I like that. I think that's actually a really nice little EX burst to hit in the deck. Thornton, Tyro, Shantoto, Amber, Shinju, Lexa. Pretty standard. Down to just the 1 Lexa. People are kind of not prioritizing getting multiples of her. Sort of makes sense, but I kind of think like 2 makes more sense to me. Just so you don't... Because like, you're always going to go Amber Shinju, which means you have to hard draw your Lexa and your Elvis. Continuing on, we have Magista. That is Magista. So we're not on the Iodolis Warrior of Light combo. That kind of lets you get a Warrior of Light to ping Magista every single turn. We're on Iodolis, which does let us revive our Magista, which is always a handy little bonus. I would be remiss to not mention that Ishtola does not damage your own Magista, by the way. That was a slight mistake on my part last video. And yeah, we get to do the same thing. Magista for Bosch, Bosch for Alfino, or Bosch for another ping, that ping for Alfino. Got the bombs, the Brynhilders, the Ifrits, lots of easy ways to ping ourselves, the Arcaicus for cheap removal. And we're going to try to combo off and kill our opponents before they know what we did. Hien's an interesting one. I wonder... It's clearly trying to push for the OTK. Like, you do the combo. Let me think this through. So I go Magista for Bosch. Bosch, point of damage. Get a bomb. Play the bomb. Ping the Magista. Magista, get Alfino. Alfino, get the second bomb. Next turn, play the bomb. Ping the Magista. Play Gutsgo or something, or Moro. Moro. That's 4, so that would give Hien haste if you played him that turn. But I don't know if you have the cards in hand to do that. I don't hate it, though. There is a lot of removal, and it's very hard to deal with this deck once it gets going. Backstar is really, really good as well. More Sabin Spam 6. We're on 3, 6, 9 Sabins. The 2 Leo, 3 Solis, 3 Gogo. Looks pretty similar. We're on the 1 copy, 2 copies of Dataluma. It's a little surprising. It's a decent little counter to Ice Earth, I guess. You get yourself a little bit of damage, and then the Umaro. We're on lots of Yetis, actually. Wow, 5 Yetis. Solis, Gogo. Jutera to get her backup count up. Pretty normal. Not too much to say on that. Ricard makes my redacted YouTube video. So this is Earth, Lightning. We're on the Delusory Warlock, Lady of Antiquity, even running the one counterfeit Wraith. Okay. Never hated that. She's just a nice little piece of removal for pretty cheap relative to her cost. The one Galoof, so I guess we're using that to handle 13. It's the one Seymour, 11 summons, it's probably enough. Cockatrice, what does this do? Is that impactful enough? I would be curious to talk to this person and see what Cockatrice actually felt like. Because I genuinely don't know. It is like a 1 CP Mistdragon, doesn't receive any damage. So your opponent's going to board wipe your X-Death or something, or like ping it for 10k. You can say it's kind of like he phases out of the game. 2 Roble, you gotta be on 3 Roble. Like, if you're investing 3 Ninja, 2 Geomancer, find room for the 3rd Roble. Lady Lilith, Melusine, that makes sense. Old Rydia backup, makes sense. Yeah, all the summons to my eyes look fine. I guess Cockatrice is not like a horrible thing to pull out with Man in Black, but I'd be curious to hear on that one a little bit more. So this is Earth Water. This is Rydia Turbo. It's Rydia Turbo. 12 backups is actually a little higher than I would usually see in a list for this. 3 Porum, 3 Ceramobius. We're all in on that. No Fenrir to pair with her. It's actually a little surprising. She's a good card. She'll help by color fixing. On Garnet, 3 full copies of as well. So we're really trying to recur back the Amaterasu effectively, or the Sildra. Minwu, no Orin, but I always liked Minwu or Orin over Minwu, but because Orin, for Minwu to be the same price as Orin, you have to have 3 summons. And Orin's ability isn't activated, so it helps you survive EXs. And Orin becomes free when he dies. Minwu doesn't have anything there. Just always liked that a little bit better, but Minwu is objectively a very strong card. 1 Kefka. Yeah, this seems solid. That's very funny. We're on the Luca. Well, you can tag the Luca into the Leonora as well to get more counters on Rydia. That's really cute. I've always considered that and just never actually done it, but that is cute. I quite like that. No Kolka. Yeah, no Kolka. Usually you would go Sarah, search Kolka, Kolka get Rydia in this list. We don't have a Rydia searcher at all. I guess that's the slot that we lost for it. Because everything else is pretty standard, actually. The Shantotos as well weren't in my list back in the day. Is that fine? Also, like, Heka's a little weird to play in this list as well, because it's a lot harder to protect your own Rydia in this list. I mean, Rydia Turbo is still a good deck, for sure. It's probably the best Sophie deck in the game. Oh! We're not on Ursula either. Yeah, we really need Luca if we're not on Ursula. That's why we're on the Luca. Ooh, Sophie's kind of a one and done. Huh, okay. Yeah, all the extra Ceramobiuses and the Garnets for kind of into the Ursula package. I see. Okay. Mono Water with Kadash. This looks like the very similar Summoner backup again, really cute. Same exact backups. We're on Tonberry in this list, which we weren't in the other one. But otherwise, it looks pretty similar. Yandam and Full of Sirmu. This is Soiree. Just the 2 Fusoyas as our Arcanist out. We're on 2 Arc, 1 Sophie. We are going to handle monsters quite well in this deck. 1 Lexa, pretty normal backups looking at it. 1 copy of the Multicolor Ace. Otherwise, a pretty normal Soiree list. We have a Mono Water deck here. We're on the Yagrosh. I always like seeing that in Mono Water. Your worst matchup is Wind by far. At least making a Tomos and Azura do 1 less thing is sometimes just enough to be worth it. Waka, Kyrie, Yagrosh, 2 Geomancer. So this is very much a turbo type list. 1 Tonberry, we're on 3 full Echidna with 17 summons. We're on this Cucullin again. That's... I wonder if these are all playtest friends. I've never seen this card in a list before. Like, since I've started... I know this was, like, really good back in the day, but this hasn't been played in a long time. So there must have been something they were playtesting with and against, and this card ended up being very, very good for them. Because that's 3 separate players that have had this, and I've legitimately never seen this card in the sleeve before. Only ever seen it in, like, it's in the FF10 starter deck. And I remember, like, distinctly complaining it was this Cucullin and not the 1-drop one that blanks abilities and draws a card. I was like, why? No one needs this one, and we all need that 1-drop common, but that's 3 different decks on that. That might be something to look into. Last one, he is him. This is Earth Lightning, Waltzes, 2x Death, 3 Man in Black, the Shadow Lord, the Tiduses, Waltz 3, Vivi, Roble, Salir. We've got our Black Mages, 11 Summons. Nothing super duper spicy in any of those. Go to our backups. We're on Seymour. Illusory. All this is pretty normal. The Shadley has always been kind of like a fringe tech in Waltzes and Black Mages in particular. We're on the Rydia to get Seymour. I forgot you could do this. Rydia is also, she's Water Earth, she's Lightning Earth, and she is Ice Earth. So what's the neutral play here? We go Rydia, get Seymour. And I guess you can decide between Kusith, Odin, or like Mist Dragon or Heka. I like it. Okay. We got two different backup engines. Yeah, that looks totally fine. Alright, that's going to do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. All 28 minutes of it. As soon as I get a nice FFDecks post with all of the Kansas City Materia Cup lists, I will have another one for y'all. But in the meantime, have a good one, y'all. Peace.